Buckle up. It's the Smart Cities episode.
Oh, God damn it.
Smart cities are being pitched. It's the next step in urban evolution. Yeah.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. These cities are designed to be efficient, connected, and sustainable, using cutting-edge technology to monitor and manage everything from traffic flow to energy usage and even your daily activities. But behind the sleek, promotional materials and promises of a green, efficient future, there's a darker side. This episode is not just about smart cities, however. It's also about the digital dollar. This is the totalitarian episode.
This episode brought to you by BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street.
Literally. I want to go into the origins of the smart city concept.
Okay.
So it's obviously been gaining traction since the early 2000s. The term smart city refers to a city that uses information technology to provide the quality of life, reduce costs, and enhance sustainability that we all want. The United Nations has been a major proponent in this, launching initiatives like the Smart Cities Project. I bet you didn't know it was a UN thing. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did.
Under its sustainable development goals, the idea is further championed by tech giants IBM, Holocaust, Cisco, and Google's Sidewalk Labs. These corporations not only saw the economic potential in these projects, but also recognized the social control possibilities of having every aspect of your life monitored and optimized through technology. Quote the document, Smart Cities and Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations. The United Nations, you can't even feed everybody. You can't even get people fed. Why are you putting us in the... Have you ever... This is such an aside already, but I have to. Have you ever seen the Abattoir sketch by Monty Python?
I don't think so.
I'm gonna have to drop maybe a clip if it's allowed here, but it's it's this sketch where they're designing a new apartment building and there's two competing designs, and one of them, like, the model keeps falling apart.
Oh.
And it keeps setting on fire, and that's like a funny joke. And then the next guy comes in, and his design for the apartment building is a slaughterhouse for humans.
But that one doesn't get on
It's
fire.
John Cleese, yeah. John Cleese. His whole design is like, and here's where they'll be humanely executed. And we have my apartment building has this nice little walkway where we'll shuttle them in. This is what the smart city idea reminds me of. It's like a bunch of people sitting around in the halls of power, and they're just describing how to farm us.
Well, I'm not going to get depressed yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
So this is pushed by global elites, Silicon Valley moguls, global banking elites, government agencies, the UN, technocrats. That word keeps coming up on this podcast. The most significant example of a smart city in the work is NEOM, a mega project in Saudi Arabia that promises to build a completely automated, tech-driven city. Wasn't Zeitgeist connected also to an automated city? The resource-based economy? I don't think this would be a resource-based. I think this would be a debt-based economy.
I think so.
It's touted as a utopian experiment. I couldn't get the word utilitarian out of my mind. And a perfect place for the elite to test boundaries of power, surveillance, and economic control on a massive scale. Now, why is this a push towards totalitarian control? Well, in one word, think China. Smart cities are designed specifically to be hyper-surveilled, highly controlled environments. And one of the reasons for this is they say they're tracking you for data collection, but you are the data. Same thing on social media. You are the product. You are Facebook's product. You are what they be selling.
Your attention.
Your attention, but also your information. your pictures, your messages. This would essentially monetize your existence, which would require tracking your existence. Were you the one who told me like the Pokemon Go app was selling people's walking trails and stuff like that?
Yeah, it was. I believe it was even funded by the CIA. It was funded by a front company.
Yeah. Well, the smart city idea would essentially put you in the Monty Python arbitrage. I cannot say the word. The slaughterhouse. And smart cities are poised to replace traditional currencies with digital money, like the digital dollar, which would directly monitor all your finances, making privacy and freedom completely obsolete in the name of data. I also get this digital dollar idea. Are you aware that Trump has proposed a digital currency, Trump proposes digital strategic reserve. He wants the U.S. government to buy things like Bitcoin, Solana, XRP. And I mean, there's a lot of good like libertarian arguments for cryptocurrency. I happen to think it's a giant CIA scam that's designed to create a monetary system that's completely trackable unless you're super powerful and you don't want it to be trackable. So I think we're making a march towards the digital dollar, which would offer unprecedented surveillance. Unlike paper money, which is largely untraceable, digital currencies would enable governments to track every single transaction, every investment, every purchase, and use to monitor your behavior and enforce compliance. The centralization of the digital dollar also eliminates the need for banks as intermediaries, which would effectively turn private wealth and government-controlled assets into elements of manipulation.
My toothbrush is Bluetooth connected.
My scale was when I had a scale.
Yeah. So it would like have a timer, and you're supposed to do 30 seconds on the top, 30 on the bottom, and do the other side. But then it would like, if you linked it with the app, it would tell you, would show how good you were doing and track it and like.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's like the Chinese social credit system where if you spit gum out on the sidewalk, you can't get a train ticket.
Yeah.
I mean, they want to turn the whole world into China. Can we look up a list of the cities in the United States that want to be smart cities?
Might be a ChatGPT question.
I'm looking on Google, smart city schemes. Let's see here. New York, Boston, Columbus, Seattle, Denver, D.C., San Francisco, Chicago, Charlotte, Dallas, Los Angeles, Pittsburgh, LaGrange, Georgia, Chattanooga, Miami-Dade County, San Jose, San Diego. Oh, worldwide it's even more.
This is roughly 140 worldwide.
Scottsdale.
China has been at the forefront with approximately 500 smart city projects launched since 2016.
Dallas, Chicago, Seattle. So we're just emulating China. I keep saying this.
Mm-hmm.
We're just emulating. They are the, what do you call it? The bellwether, the canary in the coal mine.
Yeah.
We see how stuff works there. And if you live in any of those cities or around any of those cities, that means like mayors and local councils and stuff are reading this UN document and trying to make you more like China. If you live in Scottsdale, Arizona, welcome to Beijing, my friend.
Well, this used some interesting language. The global smart cities market is also experiencing significant growth, with revenues expected to reach $79 billion in 2025 and continue growing. Just it's a market is what this is making it sound like. So like,
well, that makes sense because like, okay, let's say you're the company that makes the camera that tracks people like RoboCop. That doesn't have any real use in like suburbia Kansas City.
Right.
It might catch the odd crime every once in a while, but like the streets, we haven't designed our cities and our streets so that everybody has to flow in a specific direction, like the Slaughterhouse sketch. And once we do that, then certain industries and certain companies will have the inventions ready to go to capture people. Like London has become a surveillance state.
Yeah, it's also like this ties into like the 15, they call them 15-minute cities. So like you won't have a car. You will have to move through these bottlenecks essentially. Of
You are a
public
rat in a
transport.
maze.
Yeah.
It's going to be super convenient, but it's also super convenient to then know every move you're going to make.
Right.
And then to track it. And it would make sense, like, if you've done it in one city, if this company is used in the social credit score of China, then Scottsdale, Arizona, is going to use that company because they have a
They have a proven product.
they have a proven product. So that's why it's a market. Now that's freaky too, because that means that there's probably lobbyists. That means there's probably smart city lobbyists who are going around to cities and being like, and mayor, dude, I bitch about our mayor all the time, dude. I bitch about how the trash doesn't get picked up, the roads are trash, there's crime, kids aren't in school, all the basic stuff you would expect mayors to do. Anybody who lives in like a bigger city in the United States, like, that it's always schemes like this. The local politicians always have these schemes like, we're going to be a smart city. We're going to, by Project 2030, Project 2035. But you never think about what it means, or that it comes from a UN document, or that there's an entire market, and that they probably only came up with that idea because a freaking lobbyist from IBM and the Council on Foreign Relations came to their office and said, do you want to be important? Do you want to go down in the history books in the Dallas-Fort Worth history?
That's just like the beginning. They just want the people who are willing to do it in the beginning. They're not going to force this because there will be so much pushback. But once there's a precedent, then it's like, well, you will be left behind. And then the cities that are left after that are like, you're going this way. You won't have an option. You won't be able to trade. You won't be able to travel.
Well, also, is it there just aren't like smaller communities are just naturally kind of dying already?
Yes, true.
People are moving.
They're moving into the corridors around the interstates, which are historically the interstate highway system was put in place to be able to transport. It was a military project. It's not like they wanted people to be able to drive to Omaha fast.
That's just like a nice little.
Yeah, it's military infrastructure already.
I'm gonna look up a list of lobbyists for smart cities and smart city technology. And really, this is a story as old as time. There's always like utopians. Cisco Systems, major player in the smart city space, providing networking, hardware, software. I think Cisco probably nowadays most famous for like their security systems and their data.
Like router, server, internal server systems.
Intel, offering cutting-edge AI-powered systems for urban management. IBM, offering smart city technology for traffic management, energy optimization, which means controlling how you use energy, public safety, which means tracking you all the time. Siemens, focusing on integrating automation. Siemens lobbies for smart city infrastructure funding, as does Intel, as does IBM, as does Cisco. Microsoft focuses on lobbying for digital infrastructure policy. Google, Alphabet Inc., works and advocates for legislation that allows for better integration of digital technology in cities. The Urban Land Institute, a nonprofit focused on reshaping the future of urban spaces, pushes for sustainable urban development and new city planning. The Smart Cities Council, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the American Planning Association, National League of Cities, Smart City Innovation Center, and Bloomberg Philanthropies, advocating for policies that support data sharing and urban management.
I love that they use the word share.
Data sharing, I know.
Come on, man. Let me just have a little data.
Let me just have a little bit of your data.
Let me hold 5 datas.
And our computers are becoming so good that, that means already this thing.
Mm-hmm.
If I get in a car at a certain time in the morning, it automatically Google Maps opens and says, "Do you want to go to Planet Fitness?" I haven't been to Planet Fitness in a year. This thing knows. It knows what I used to do all the time at 7 a.m. That means that the people sharing my data know. There's already, man, this is some Minority Report shit.
Yeah, because it's predictive. It's presuming. And this is like, it's always, well, one, it's all, it's like on the surface, end poverty and hunger, promote health and well-being, ensure quality education, gender equality, clean water sanitation, affordable clean energy, decent work and economic growth. It's just utopian language.
Yeah, can I just say, if a charity's trying to do too much, that makes me way less likely to trust that charity. How can your goal be like everyone's happy and rich and healthy? Like, that's not
right.
That's too much.
There's no historical precedent for that.
Well, also it's like you would have to be totalitarian in your aims to have that many goals. Why wouldn't you just start separate charities that do this one's to feed people and that one's to house people and this one's for the animals and that one also what does that mean? How do you do those things? Through what?
Right.
That's not even a mission. That would just be every human's mission.
Some people do not want this. They want to live in a small, quiet place and, have a simple life. They don't need to be the tip of the spear of innovation and infrastructure and industry.
But that's the way it's being pushed. Think about the way they push manufacturing out of the country, and they say, remember when the coal miners were losing their job and they were saying, learn to code?
I don't. But
where are you going to learn to code? You got to move to these urban centers.
It's also, I think we talked about this before, but there's just like an understanding in the European culture about philanthropy. And it's exactly like what you're saying. It's like they do not trust they do not trust big philanthropy.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what kind of fucked up thing are they trying to make up for? How are you lying to me? What are you trying to get me to do? Blah, blah, blah. There's just like this, culturally, there's this understanding that it's not to be trusted.
There's something about, remember our New York is a PSYOP episode?
Yeah.
So there's something to be said. I just looked into how are they moving people out of small towns and into urban centers? And it's ad campaigns, smart city initiatives, displacement, environmental regulations, and sustainability. Because one of the things in my original notes here was that it's theorized that environmental policies are designed to push people into urban centers. Like if you have a small, if you have a small town, they say agriculture, you got to eat the bugs, not the cows. Like you don't mine the coal, you write the code. You can just see this happening in America. It's not bad to move to a city, but it's odd that they all have this unified goal. It's like that video where all the local news stations are saying threat to democracy.
Yes.
It's like it seems like your local small town people, but they're getting their script. So like the mayor of your town seems like that local, it's Mayor Q, but like he's getting his script from the freaking UN.
The World Economic Forum.
And that's part of a bigger thing to move people out of, say, Downs, Kansas into Kansas City. And then Kansas City has to be a smart city because we have to be environmentally conscious or whatever, or create the right kind of jobs. And then all that means is there's this industry of companies that we just listed. They're going to get all these contracts to monetize you and your movement and your behavior and create a system of control similar to China.
It's you can see it. You can see what happens. China's the. I mean, people will be like, "Oh, they'll make it a political thing," and it is inherently. But like, do you? This is where it gets philosophical because like, do you value sovereignty? Like this is one of the main concerns here. International sustainability efforts could limit national decision making, and then all the way down to the level of the individual sovereignty. So you it's also an experiment.
It is an experiment.
It's
a massive human experiment. I would say something like this, if all these cities pull this off and we all become smart cities in the next 10 years, that might be the biggest revolution in the way people live since factories.
Yeah.
It'll change where you live. It'll change how you live, how you work, your relationship to your city, to your neighbors. Think about all the coded political language too. And we have one more topic, probably your favorite topic before we close this down. But I was just thinking, all the politically charged coded things.
How do goth Latinas work into this?
This is going to be it, actually. This is going to be it.
Oh, okay.
Think of in every city and in the way nationally that we think and talk about cities, all the politically coded and charged language about who moves in and out. Think about what's the line between gentrification versus white flight. What is considered investment versus what's considered gentrification.
Development, progress, sustainability.
They definitely don't want people to leave. That's called flight. That's bad. You racist. They definitely don't want a certain kind of uncontrolled investment. That's called gentrification. There's something, it becomes like a political concern if you build a certain type of building or a certain type of business. You know what I mean? Like, that just struck me as an odd, because I do believe that culture wars are a creation of the financial elite. I do believe it's designed to divide us and then to put the power in their control. Because when you're in this white flight gentrification mind F, where it's like nobody can leave but nobody can come in, it gives the urban planning and the power to these lobbyists and to these companies who they don't really care if you're white or black. They want everybody in that corridor. They want you in the information economy, and they want to turn you into a piece of data to share. Which brings me to my final topic. What would the Patriot Act. Some people believe the Patriot Act was one of the end goals of 9/11 if it was an inside job. So what would they do? Think of this as a big-ass Patriot Act. Everyone in smart cities. What would they do to bring this forward? Would they cause a climate crisis? Would they cause a manufactured financial crisis to usher in the digital dollar? Would they burn down suburbs? Would FEMA intentionally delay aid after a hurricane?
Would they kill all the birds in a processing plant to get people to move out of that town that employs?
The warehouse fires. The bird flu.
Yeah. Just one at a time.
You can't have this industrialized. You have to move from the factories to the smart cities and from the farms to the smart cities. So you would use natural disaster, you'd use sickness, you'd use ecological events, manufactured financial crisis, warehouse fires, natural fires. Is it all to move people out of your blue collar suburban life and into this? That is the question. Do you think any of these natural disasters, do you think any of this stuff was... I believe that at least what was it? Hawaii, right? The laser thing.
Yeah.
That was
Lahaina.
one of the first times I heard the word smart city.
Oh, interesting. This is, well, it's been going on a while for me. Alex Jones always talked about it because he talked about the Agenda 2020. And I think there was one before that, maybe 2010, but it's been going on for decades.
Yeah.
This like move in this direction. And then they can have these ideas, but the technology has to be, the technology has to catch up, or it has to be accepted before they just, if they were to just show up and turn a switch on, now the city's smart and there's cameras everywhere and they track it. You can't do that.
First, you have to herd all the people.
Yeah, and you need them to accept these technologies like in small doses and incremental initiations. This is like, they talk about the Hegelian dialectic. It's a philosophical framework developed by George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, 1770 to 1831. But this is like an initial idea, belief, or condition, a thesis, then the antithesis, a reaction or contradiction that challenges it, and then the synthesis is the resolution. So it's like problem, reaction, solution. And if you use this, if you've weaponized this, you create the problem that will get this reaction, and then you have the solution to the problem because you created it.
Yeah.
So it's supposed to be an analytical, like...
And that's part of that inspired Marx too.
Yeah.
Well,
economic system, Marx's adaptation. So
this is making me rethink a lot of things in my life. Like the whole everyone has to go to college. Because, okay, when I was a kid, we were born in the late 80s, so that was shortly before like NAFTA. That was before all the stuff starts getting shipped out. Now, then they start shipping all the jobs out. Everything starts being made in China. Everything starts being made in Mexico. And then all of the media is like, your kids have to have a degree. It doesn't matter what the degree is. It doesn't matter how worthless it is. The only way to have a good life is through a degree. And at the same time, they're pumping this out while they're getting rid of the blue-collar jobs. But then the only place where a gender studies degree or a social science degree or like a tech degree, the only place that makes sense is in urban centers.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like my whole life I've been being sold something that as computers advanced is building up into this utopian idea. So I guess the way I'm connected to the Hegelian dialectic or whatever is the problem of where are the jobs? What do I do? That was laid out for our generation prior to us even having like decision making or autonomy.
Yeah.
You have to go to this place and do these things to succeed. Oh, and by the way, those are the places that while you're arguing about gentrification and white flight and whether or not it's good or bad, whether you got to move there and you got to have the degree. And by the way, while you're arguing about that, we're going to be installing these cameras.
It was, Austin. I lived in Austin for a couple of years, and there's this place called The Domain.
That's chill and normal.
And it was like supposed to be this like tiny little upscale community that was all modernized, and it had like a Ralph Lauren store and like all these, like fancy brands. There was like a yogurt shop and a coffee shop and healthy restaurants. But it was so bizarre. It was like it was like the neighborhood from Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah.
But like modern. And there was like all high-rise apartments, like 10, 12 stories.
You find little pockets of that around here.
And yeah, and then like, so that was the thing that like tipped me off that it was something weird was happening. And that was literally right across the street from a huge IBM facility. So it's like supposed to attract certain,
This is your pod.
yes,
This is your self-sustained pod.
and then you'd go on like on the east side of Austin, it would just be like generational families, but then there would be like this row of 3 or 4 cookie cutter identical, like angled roof, bright blue, bright yellow, bright green houses.
Yeah.
Right next to houses that were built in the 1900s, like 100.
What's the beauty? We don't have beauty in things anymore.
Right. It was just so bizarre. And then there was this plot of land that eventually became like some type of apartment complex, but for a long time there was a sign that someone hung up on the fence that just said "Coming soon, more white people." This was on East MLK in Austin. So, but like I could see it happening.
Yes. They
But
be having these.
just like, yeah.
Nobody goes to the urban planning meeting.
Right.
Unless you have like a particular cause or I mean, how many people do you think in this country religiously go to an urban planning meeting because they're aware of this? And they're like,
yeah.
I'm just gonna go every week. Like some people go to the Elk Lodge, and I'm just gonna make sure we're never a smart city. This kind of makes me want to become an anti-smart city advocate. This makes me want to become a figure in local politics who's just like
You're the dissenting opinion.
anti-smart. That's my one thing. That's my big thing is why do we have this agenda? Please scrap it. There's other ways to invest money. It's just that whole futurism idea too. It's a whole technocratic futurism idea. Why does that have to be the way we move into the future? Why don't you invest the money in these other ways or these other benefits?
There are a lot of like great ideas. Well, it's like the thing I think of was like during the Second World War, everyone was encouraged to turn their yards into a garden because there were shortages. It was a way to like mitigate the food shortages that were being used to support the war effort. So you just grew, everyone was encouraged to grow food.
Victory gardens.
Yeah, and then like so like if everyone, it would create a
Yeah, what if instead of putting the money into the Cisco cameras, you offered resources for people to more urban chickens or something?
right.
And then that, because you're like, food prices are high, let's start growing stuff on roofs. Let's like, what if that was I want to say is there's infinite ideas beside let's create the technocratic, everyone's sitting in a coffee shop in your weird little Austin, whatever the hell that was called, I forget. And then why can't we can never be creative.
I used to go over there because all the roads were super smooth, and there was this parking garage.
I used to go there because the roads were smooth.
Well, I would longboard.
Oh, okay.
So all the roads were like they were brand new, and then the security guy was chasing me around one day, and he finally stopped me, and he's like, "This is a private." He kicked me out because it was a private
community.
it was a private community.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, what the fuck is
I'm just on a road.
Right. I was like, how is this road a private? But it was like,
we're bringing back company towns.
and I was like, well, who says? Because I was like, you're a security guard. This is a public place. But that wasn't a. And he said, Simon says.
And
When I asked who says I have to leave. And it was just like a rent-a-cop, but it was like this private security for this private community pod.
The pod.
That was like one of the that is like a very ominous memory I have. It's just
Simon
says. I don't know. It was a weird place.
All right. Well, drop your thoughts below. Like and subscribe.
Keep Kansas City weird.
Keep everywhere weird.
Keep livestock in your yard.
Mr. Ed lived in the garage. I think about that all the time. Okay, we love you. Bye.